Hey, what's good, fam? Welcome to another episode of the Feed Me, Fuel Me podcast. Durs and Jeff coming to you today with Subyn Wadsworth, mother of four, auctioneer, actress, model, real estate,
yoga teacher,
instructor,
Man,
ballet bar teacher, all
wearing
kinds of
all
stuff.
the hats.
Yes, exactly.
How does one become an auctioneer? Because at the Child Help Gala, we were sitting at the same table.
Right.
And, we got to talking, and I'm just extremely curious because that's not on it. I've never taken an aptitude test that said, hey,
Right.
you could be an auctioneer.
Right.
Yeah, it's not on there.
No.
So, my journey is probably different than everybody else's.
Okay.
I kind of fell into it.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, Leticia Frye, we modeled and acted together, and I was the host and MC for Alice Cooper's Christmas Pudding. And she was like, you're used to being on the stage, just stay on the stage and see how you like it.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, I had kind of just been visualizing and searching for what I want to do in my life. And I wanted a job where I felt like I was giving back to the world, but also a job that I loved. And I have 4 kids, as you mentioned, and a job that would be able to provide a good living for all of us. And so as I'm on the stage with her, and she's a force of nature. You've seen her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I see the Coopers in the corner crying because she's not like bawling, but like tears in their eyes because she's raising so much money for them. I see the people in the audience that are enamored by her just presence.
Yeah, she moves the room.
Yeah, she does. And then you could just sense like the energy and just the power of it all. And I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. Like, this is everything that I just said that I want.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. And so in that moment, I decided that this is my next job that I'm going to do.
That's cool.
So I kind of trailed her for about a year just to make sure that I wasn't just caught up in the moment because Johnny Depp was on stage. And I was like, maybe it's just the Johnny Depp factor. But so I trailed her for about a year and she mentored me. Then I went to auction school, which is 10 days of like 8 to 8. And basically you learn like tongue twisters.
I was about to say, so like, what are some of the tricks of the trade?
So I'll give you the number one is Betty bought some butter, but she said this butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. So she bought a bit of butter, put it in her bitter batter, made her bitter batter. So does better. Betty bought a bit of butter.
Whoa.
So that's like
No joke. I understood everything on that one.
You got
Yeah.
it. So so you
crazy.
just learn tongue twisters, like just basic stuff, but it's more like being comfortable being uncomfortable, I guess.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then as soon as I got out of auction school, she was like, here's your first job. And so she was the one that, because she's so established, and she because she trusted me because we had that 15-year friendship before.
Oh, right. Yeah.
She was like, here, take your wings off you go.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Oh, my God.
yeah, so it was awesome. So speaking to making yourself comfortable being uncomfortable, prior to even that, I just, inside of me, I knew that I needed to start doing that. So I went on this photo shoot in Europe for 10 days it was just me and 5 guys, and we did everything that would make me uncomfortable. Like we had to climb to the top of a mountain and stand on a base jumping thing, and I'm super scared of heights. Then I had to conduct a symphony in Vienna, and like everything I would be terrified of.
Yeah.
And then I got back here and I started doing improv classes, and then I started doing salsa dance lessons. And it was just kind of like, I just knew inside of me, I need to make myself uncomfortable.
How is the discomfort of working a room, so to speak, different than the discomfort that comes with just being an actress and a model?
I mean, I feel like it's all kind of the same because you're going to be nervous no matter what.
Sure.
And it's just kind of like changing that into being positive energy instead of negative energy.
It's interesting that you say that.
And not freaking out.
Yeah. You know, I was watching one of those, there's a documentary on Netflix called Medal of Honor right now. And it's the dramatization of a Medal of Honor citation for, World War II, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. And one of the Medal of Honor recipients talks about, in the moment, it's the fear that gets you through. It's the being afraid that makes you good.
Right.
at your job.
Yeah,
and
that's so
you know,
true.
and to a lesser extent, not so much life and death.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like those nerves
Yeah,
kind
for
of
sure.
get you over the hump and
Yeah.
make you like surpass whatever expectations you had going in.
Right. And like I listened to lots of YouTube stuff. We talked about that.
Yeah.
And Will Smith kind of says the same thing. Like if he's afraid of something, he just goes into it.
Yeah.
Just to overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to skydive next.
Nice.
Lord.
That's
So we'll
awesome.
That's a
see.
risk.
That's like, I need the weather to warm up. You know, I need
Because
perfect conditions.
you know,
I'm with that.
even when it's 120 down here, it's
still
cold
freezing
up there.
40
Yeah.
degrees up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So-
interesting in the entertainment industry, like, because my brother came from the DJ background.
Okay.
And so there's this entertainment company or entertainment group, they call themselves, of DJs.
Uh-huh.
And they're the top on the East Coast, excuse me.
Okay.
And what he does, for anybody before they step on, you know, the DJ platform to do these events, he makes them go through improv classes. He's like,
Oh.
if you can't first read this one book that he gives them and take improv
Right.
classes, he's like, you don't know what it takes to be an entertainer.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
sure.
It's
so
not just
true.
like being a DJ, it's just like being an entertainer. It sounds
Yeah.
like that's exactly what you're doing. Because when you're on stage doing the bitter bad,
Yeah.
you know, it's like,
Well, I don't do that on stage.
I mean, when you're
Yeah.
working an audience,
Yeah.
you're creating a spectacle, like an
Yeah.
entertainment and keeping people engaged.
Yeah.
And it seems like with everything that you're doing, it's
Yeah.
like pushing that comfort zone
Right.
is what's drawing people towards you, is what it sounds like.
Because you got to be prepared. I mean, yesterday I did an event and the sound went out. And,
Yeah.
you know, if I didn't have improv, I would shut down, not know what to do. So it's like I had to just go with it.
Sure.
So it just makes you present.
Yeah.
You know? Keeps you present.
That's crazy.
So-
To even
Dude,
have the nerve
Yeah.
to do that.
It's fun though.
I've seen her. I've seen her mentor.
Yeah.
And man,
Really.
because right before they go do their thing, depending on the script, the run of show, as
Yes.
they call it, I'm
Yes.
learning all
Okay,
these
okay.
things,
You're getting
right?
it.
I like it.
Nicole will be proud of you.
Right? She watches.
She does.
Depending on the run of show, typically the auction comes after dinner, right?
Mhm.
And you know, just like going back to class after lunch, it's like that
The lull.
lull in the energy.
Right.
Man, as soon as they pick up the mic, bro, like
Yeah.
it changes.
Really?
Time to get the party started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The energy goes up. Like you can feel the temperature rise in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
How's
gotta
that-
come. You
How's
gotta
that?
come
How's
to an
that
event.
work? Like, I'm interested. Like, when you're presenting or doing the auctioneering, how does the message come across? Because I don't even know like what you do. Honestly,
well, first,
like,
I mean,
what
it
that looks
depends
like.
what items we have. So
Yeah.
it's all about the items first because you want to bring the energy up.
Uh-huh.
So usually we sell all the items and we talk about the descriptions. I
Yeah.
know Michael always does videos with it, which is good.
Yeah.
Not
But-
me. Another
Not
Michael.
another
Oh,
Michael,
okay.
yeah. Another friend of ours, yeah.
Man, you're multifaceted,
No.
bro.
No, man.
Another friend of ours. So if they show the videos, that's
Yeah.
nice. But most of the time, Leticia and I memorize everything
Holy
and
smokes.
just try to talk about, you know, the product, I guess. I mean, we feel like we're brand ambassadors for
Yeah.
the charity. So we want to represent the charity and do our best. And, you know, they hire us for excellence. So we try to work in excellence. So we sell the live items and
Yeah.
that's exciting and, you know, energetic. And then we go into why are we here? So Gateway for Cancer Research. We're here to raise money for research so
Uh-huh.
people can survive.
Yeah.
And so it's a different energy. It's still intense, but it's just a little more subdued. And then that's when, I mean, people are giving out of their hearts. They're not getting a fancy prize in return.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
giving because they're here in this room because they believe in the cause.
Interesting. So is
Yeah.
it sort of like relating to my DJ experience? Is it when you're presenting or doing auctioneering, is it picking up like the beats per minute? Is like that the methodology behind it where you're getting the pace up and where people are sort of excited to sort of
I don't
go
know if
after
it's
it?
beats per minute. It's just more like you just want to create an energy to get people excited
Right.
to give because
Yeah.
we want their money.
Right.
Right.
And
Right?
how does it go? Like, can you give me an example of what that sounds like? Say,
Okay,
like,
I'm going to auction off your CrossFit shirt. Here we go. Ready?
yeah.
Opening bid is $500. $500. I would have bid at $500. Now $600. Would have bid at $6 and $7 and $7 and $700. I would have bid at $700. You need a bid. $800. I would have bid at $800. Now $9 would have bid at $900. Now $1,000. I would have bid at $1,000. $1,000. Yes, thank you. $1,500.
That's dope.
Yeah.
I like it because you can feel it. You can feel
Yeah.
your energy
You
start
get
lifting
you
up.
get ramped up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what like that's the
And
sort
then
of
if there's
thing.
two people bidding, then I'd be like yes, and then yes, and then yes.
Dude, this shit
Yeah.
is crazy.
It's like
Really?
it's like a competition.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I've,
it's
I've
really
seen
cool.
it live in living
Yeah.
color, man. These folks, it was the Greece trip.
Uh-huh.
one guy's at like table 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another guy's at like table 14, and she is just,
I know.
it's like ping pong, bro. And she's just serving this bid.
Yeah.
No
back
kidding.
Yeah,
and
it's so
forth.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the whole room is just getting amped up, amped up,
Because
amped
the
up.
more, people just go higher and higher and higher.
But like the cool thing is, like, once that whole thing settles out, everything that you're about to bid on after that, whatever you would have settled on increases exponentially.
Oh, yeah,
Because
for
now
sure.
the room is like, okay, let's do this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's
interesting.
really fun.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
You know, as I assess the psychology of it, it has less to do with the actual thing,
Right.
and everything to do with the energy that she brings out of the room.
Right.
Yeah. Which is, I think, what makes myself and Leticia and a few other people different is we consider ourselves auctioneers.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we entertain, like you said. We're not just up there like calling numbers and standing behind a podium.
Yeah.
Like, we're in the audience. We're in it to win it. We're
Right.
like invested.
No bullshit,
So,
bro. Like,
yeah.
when they come by your table, you're like, don't look at me.
You're like, don't look at me.
Because once they hit you, it's like,
Yeah.
I guess I'll do $1 million today.
that
true.
slow paddle
Like-
raise,
Right.
like, all right.
Yeah. That's the pressure on. And I'm 5'9" and she's like 6 foot. So
Yeah.
if we're both there together, it's we,
Oh,
You have a
we could be
presence.
They got presence.
we could be
Yeah.
intimidating.
For
yeah.
sure.
I love that.
So it's
but
fun, though.
that's what makes you great, though. Is it's just because
Yeah.
like you're not just putting yourself in a box and saying I'm just an auctioneer.
Right.
Like an auctioneer is like
Yeah.
that's encompassing. That's an event coordination.
Right.
Like you're
Yeah.
running the entire room.
Yeah.
And to take that in and understand
Yeah.
that and be able to put yourself in situations
Right.
like improv or all those type of
Yeah.
things people are scared to do.
Yeah.
For you to do that, that's what makes
Right.
you who you are. That's incredible. I can
Yeah.
feel the energy through the mic now.
What do you want to buy?
I'm
No,
sold.
just kidding.
You
Yeah.
told me the shirt off my back. Here's $1
Right.
million.
Yeah. No, it's true. And
No.
that's how I know it's my purpose, because
cool.
I would have never in 1,000 years. I used to be so scared to be on a stage, even though I acted and modeled. It's
Yeah.
like you're still separate. You're not
Right.
like
Right.
you're not yourself. You know
Sure.
what I mean? You're whoever the designer wants you to be, or
Yeah.
whoever the role is.
Yeah.
So because I'm so comfortable, like that's how I know it's my purpose and my passion.
That's
So
awesome.
So,
How
yeah.
did you find your way into acting and modeling?
So when I was 14, I was in Oregon, and I was the only person that looks like me in my little small community in Milwaukee, Oregon. And so they were having an ethnic model search, and I went. Why are
love
you
it.
making that face?
We know what that
Right,
means.
I know, right?
Yep.
We need some black folks.
Right. Yeah. And yeah. Anyway, so I went with a friend. I wasn't even doing it.
Oh wow.
And,
Okay.
And so I was sitting there supporting my friend, and they asked me to enter it, and then I ended up winning it. And so
Wow.
she hates me.
I was gonna say, how did your friend feel about it?
Yeah. Never talked to her since.
Oh
But
shit.
yeah.
Really?
But no, never.
Oh, wow.
So, but it was another like divine appointment, because it allowed me to pay for my college, and like I was able to see the world, open my eyes to a bigger world and other stuff. Because I grew up, my mom was a hippie. My mom's white, my dad's black. My mom's a hippie. We lived in a teepee.
Oh
Okay.
shit.
Yeah.
Everything that happens with being a hippie was going
Yeah.
on.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And so, and then my dad was in East Coast in DC,
Okay.
and he's black. And so when I went with him, it was like complete opposite. It was like
Yeah.
gangster, not gangster, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
totally black. So
Chocolate City, right?
Chocolate City.
Yeah.
So I grew up in both kind of crazy worlds.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any more different than that.
Yeah.
Oregon and DC.
I know.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's-
yeah.
That's completely
Complete
different.
opposite. Yeah.
What part of DC?
Well, Alexandria, Virginia.
Okay. Yeah.
But I had a fake ID at 14 and would
There
take
you
the
go.
train to Georgetown. And
Yeah.
So I was living life for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what's it like being one of the being the oftentimes only one of us
Right.
in the room for you?
Well, I feel like I grew up like that. Either I was the only person of color, or I was the only light-skinned person when I was
Yep.
with my dad.
Sure. Yeah.
So I feel like that prepared me. I feel like my whole life has prepared me for where I'm at now, and then this will prepare me for where I'm going in the future.
Yeah.
So I feel like it. I wish there was more people of color at these events. I've seen it change just in the short amount of time
Yeah.
that I have been doing it.
Yeah.
But I just like, I didn't know that auctioneering was a job. Like, I literally thought only older white men
From Texas.
from Texas are auctioneers,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And how amazing is it that I can be a woman and a woman of color and show that to my daughters and to other women and men throughout the country. So, I mean, it is different when I'm the only one, especially as the auctioneer and I'm in charge, but it's empowering because the world is changing. The world is open to you know, not just having it be an older white guy.
Right.
This is you're like hyper niched. You know, not only you're ethnicity, like you're black, but you're female in this male dominated industry. Have you seen pushback like from events that you've gone to, or
not pushback, but like I have a guy I work with in California and he's like, I don't think I'm going to send you to the hunting national conference, you know, because I just want to be a good fit. It would be awkward. And I understand that. I don't take it personal. I don't want to be somewhere where they don't want me, you know. And there's enough people that want me that they're like, you know, wow, you know, which is awesome.
Have you always been conscious of that?
Oh, yeah, forever, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, just growing up with a white mom, and then my stepdad was white, then my little brother was white, and they always thought I was the adopted one.
Okay.
You know? So, I mean, I've always been aware. I think it's, you know, Arizona's awesome, and I feel like I don't feel the racism now. I mean, I don't even feel like my 4 daughters know what that feels like.
Right.
And the reason I ask is because growing up in the military community, I didn't have any direct, obvious racism until my freshman year of high school.
Oh, yeah.
Just outside of Montgomery, Alabama.
The South, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I was dating a white girl.
Oh, yeah.
How'd
that go?
She calls me up crying one day.
Yeah.
And telling me that we have to break up. 14 years old, whatever. And I'm like, why? And she says, my mom doesn't want me dating niggers. Yeah.
Wow.
So like that was when the veil was pulled off my eyes, and I'm like, holy shit, this is real. This is still a thing. Yeah. You know? And that my mom's white, my dad's black. They had to like sit me down and give me like the hard facts of life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, you know, I asked that question because I wasn't always conscious of it. You know, I thought everybody was just cool with everybody.
Right.
It wasn't a thing.
Right.
And then, you know, one of the underlying things in America is it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Super. Yeah.
So,
No, I feel like I've always known that I was different.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Either way, if it was my black family or if it was my white family, it just was always. And then my sister, my dad's daughter's all black. So my sister's all black and my brother's all white.
Okay.
And so it's, you know.
Yeah, it's such an interesting dynamic because like my family's the same thing, and my sisters look same skin complexion as you. And when you're going through school, it's like, what are you?
Yeah.
It's like I'm a human being.
Just
like
myself.
I'm just here doing my thing. But it's a question that we haven't been able to avoid our entire lives.
No, it's so true.
And then, but the difference was like my parents come from the South, so Atlanta, Georgia, North Carolina.
Okay.
And so they went through all of like the segregation back in the civil rights days. And so we heard their stories, but where I grew up was southern New Mexico.
Right.
And the Southwest was open to the idea of, you know, mixed relationships.
Right.
So we didn't have that type of pushback that our parents did.
Right.
But they taught us those concepts. So when we did go to like Alabama to visit our grandparents, it was a completely eye-opening experience, but we had a better understanding. So it's just crazy to see that, man.
It is, yeah.
Like how, you know, people of ethnicity run across these problems. And it's like, it's just odd that it happens.
It
You know what I mean?
doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's like we're all humans.
Yeah.
We all are the same.
Like it's a defining character of like your skin. Like if you're not put in this bucket, then you don't belong. And it's like that question is just it gets you after a while.
Yeah,
it's like what the hell?
Does. Yeah, for sure.
But it's cool that you pushed through it. It's like that's the part. And it's like seeing people of our crowd, like black or mixed, in positions of power, like starting our show, being an auctioneer.
Yeah.
Like our younger generation needs to see that because
for sure.
If you're like going to conferences, for an example, like you'll see white people on stage.
Right.
And you can hear the message they're giving you. Like, you can build $100 million business.
Yeah.
And sitting as a black man in the audience, like, that makes sense. But the message is not well received because, like, I see somebody who doesn't look like me, talk like me, or come from the same background.
Yeah.
But if there was somebody, like, that look like me, that message might get across a lot easier.
Sure. Right.
And like our younger generation,
Right. So
having
true.
people in power like ourselves is
Right.
like, I think it's easier for them to digest
Right.
and start looking at themselves like, I am a powerful individual, you know, aside from just being put in a bucket, so to
Right.
speak.
Yeah.
You know, so I
totally.
think it's something like you said, we're in a different era of these days where we can get our message out there,
Yeah.
which makes it, you know,
Yeah.
easier for the next crew coming up.
Right. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
I think I heard a stat not too long ago. Our kids' generation, it will be the first generation where mixed is the majority.
Right.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see as, because your kids are already teenagers,
They're
right?
15, 13, 11, and 8.
Okay.
That's a good
Are they-
spread. Yeah.
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 Is,
All
is,
girls.
is it a thing for them?
Like
the
their
race
color?
the race conversation?
Well, they go to a private Christian school,
Okay.
so it's diverse, but
Yeah.
not. So
Mhm.
they, of course, know that they're not. You know
Mhm.
that there's a difference, but
Yeah.
there's not racism. Like
Okay.
people aren't calling them out of their
Mm,
name
that's
or
good. Right.
saying stuff. You know.
Sure.
You know, it's not a big deal. My daughter went to homecoming with a white
Mhm.
kid, and
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't like a big issue.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah. It'll just be because my kids are about to be 3 and about to be 1.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested, and they look white.
they do look white.
I'm half, and my wife's white.
Right.
So my son's blonde hair, blue eyed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how all that discussion
Right.
comes about. 'Cause
Yeah.
I feel like as a parent now, there's a lot of things that you won't discuss
Right.
if it doesn't,
doesn't
need to
come
be-
up,
if it
yeah.
doesn't come
Mm.
up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The hardest day for them is Martin Luther King for my little ones.
Really?
Like when they're in elementary school, because
Uh-huh.
that's when it like they're like they take it on them. Like
Uh-huh.
oh my gosh, like they just have shame in it.
Mhm.
Like
Really?
that they were a slave or
Well,
they came from.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that's been like the hardest fight with my girls, and I don't
Yeah.
know if because they're emotional or girls, but they
Mhm.
really like take on
They
and
internalize
absorb the shame of our history and our
Mhm.
culture. So, you know, I always have to walk them through it and tell them,
Yeah.
you know, it's sad, but you should be proud of where you came from and
Mhm.
proud that, you know, how hard our people fought. And even
Yeah.
my dad that just passed, I mean, he went through so
Mhm.
much being married to my mom who's white.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. My dad is my mom's from Staten Island, New York,
Okay.
and my father's from Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a 13-year gap between them.
Okay.
And my dad's of the Vietnam generation, and my mom was a Gulf War veteran.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so two very different times.
Yeah.
You know, my mom was coming into, getting to know herself in the late 70s into the 80s, and but my dad grew up in segregation and all that crazy shit. So my mom being from the North, being
Right.
a Yankee,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that my dad walked around with on his
Right.
back
Yeah.
that, he had to educate my mom about,
Right.
that just she wasn't necessarily exposed to,
Right.
up north.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but the conversation is really interesting, sitting in these fundraising rooms, being one of the few people of color in the room. And as I look at it and I watch the Black Lives Matter stuff on the news and whatnot,
Right.
as I sit in that room, one of the things that I realize is that the people that are able to generate these millions of dollars for these causes and whatnot, it's a generational financial education.
Right.
It's not so much that they're fortunate enough to inherit money or come from money.
Right.
They are taught about money.
Yeah, that's true.
And that doesn't necessarily happen in the African American community
Right.
at large.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
And I had that epiphany at the sitting at the table with you with Marcus.
Yeah.
And just looking around, and I just had this realization, like, all these people know how to be rich. They
Right.
know
They
how
grew
to
up
be
with-
wealthy.
They grew up
Right.
in it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, their expectation is to be
Right.
wealthy
That's good.
and well off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's their mindset. Like,
Yeah.
there's no choice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which can be the same. Like, some people's mindset could be, I have no choice but to be poor and suffer
Absolutely.
and be on
Mhm.
welfare.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's not always a circumstantial thing.
Right.
Mhm.
Is, kind of the point that I'm getting at. You can make a choice to be on either side of the fence.
Right.
Which is why I'm kind of on a soapbox about getting more of us in that room.
Mhm.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
let's have an event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Let's
auction
make
some
that
stuff
happen.
off. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Because you do,
Yeah.
you're right. You have to have those conversations with
Right.
with individuals. Because I know it's the majority. I'll speak for myself. You come from a black family
Yeah.
whose tradition is steeped in just the culture and family community.
Right.
And it's all about love and all of that. But you're not taught. You're not taught how to build wealth, like generational wealth.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, love your family. Like money doesn't grow on trees type
Yeah.
of mentality.
Right.
But you're sort of taught or born into scarcity. And I see it in the majority of like black communities. You mentioned like the Black Lives Matter. Why us? Why us? Instead of like
I
saying
don't like
why
the
us.
victim mentality.
The victim mentality.
Yeah.
Instead of like being a victim, take responsibility for where we are
Right.
and start
And
putting
change.
start putting the pieces in play instead of
Right.
just blaming every
Right.
circumstance.
Yeah.
And that's what I see a lot in the black community is that first off, we don't work together as a community, right?
Right.
It's very individualistic. Like I've got to get money and you can't take from my money. It's
Right.
like, no, where other communities like Hispanic communities, white communities, they know how to grow with one another. Indian communities especially,
Yeah.
they teach each other and they level up.
Right.
But the black community wants to, like I said, separate ourselves.
yeah.
And then even in the black community, I know you've experienced it. You're either dark skinned
Dark skin or
you're light skinned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't fit in any of those boxes, so it's always just a conflict,
Yeah.
it seems like.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we're almost
Yeah.
our own worst enemies.
Right.
You don't know?
No,
Does
I
that
agree.
make sense?
I think I experienced more racism in DC as a light skinned black girl
Yep.
than as a black girl in a white community.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that resonates
Yeah.
deeply.
Oh, yeah.
My
I
sisters
feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've said and same thing with me. It's like you are looked as the outcast because as a light skinned person, you're not supposed to be tough. You're
Right.
not
Yeah.
aggressive. Like you're the weaker of the race,
Yeah.
so to speak. You're the watered down
You're
version.
the house.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah. Yep. You're the
Oh,
watered
yeah.
down version
Yeah.
of the race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you come with that narrative, and I think, well, I know that's why I'm so like aggressive towards things because like I've heard that through life. So it's like, you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna show you that you're not gonna undermine my talent, skills,
Right,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and that's what pushes it forward.
Right. That's
But
true.
I think this is interesting to see that dynamic
Yeah.
happen.
But
you know?
I think it's interesting what you bring up about the seminar stuff and the reception of information. There's not enough of us on that stage preaching that message to us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So there's got to be, going back to your point about accepting responsibility for where we are, there's got to be we as a collective need to make a decision to be included, not separate.
Yes.
right.
There's this mindset as a culture that we're going to do it all by ourselves.
Right.
Right.
You can't.
And
No, you're right.
it's not irrelevant. It definitely has its merits, but we're in a global society now.
Right.
There is instantaneous access to everything. And so while it does have its merits, it's not as efficacious as it would have been 20 years ago.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there are no more secrets.
Yeah.
Like the steps that are required to get a seat at that table in that room, everybody has access to that information.
Absolutely.
Right.
And nobody is locked out,
Right. Yeah, that's true.
which is the most important thing.
Right.
So instead of trying to do it all ourselves, why not join the party?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's not, like, to me, I don't look at that mindset as selling out.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's some of the things that I grew up with.
Right.
Wanting to excel, going to the Air Force Academy, doing well academically, being an entrepreneur.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not going back to my neighborhood after college. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you sold out.
Yeah. Right.
No.
Which
I
why
I leveled up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I just think that's other people's insecurities
Oh,
that they
it's a
put on you
projection
because
for
you
sure.
are the mirror to what they want to
Yeah.
what they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
But it's just interesting the mindset.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
like you were talking
Well,
about.
even with me, like when I put that path out there, what I wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
I was at a place in my life where I was miserable.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can either die, let my spirit die and be miserable,
Mhm.
or I'm 40 years old, I can just change my mindset. And it
Mhm.
was like the universe just kept bringing different books, different authors,
Yeah.
just different things in front of me. And
Yeah.
I listened.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I think I can really change my mindset.
Yeah.
And then the more I did it, it was like, you know, doors just kept opening.
Right.
And before I knew it, I was like, oh my gosh, my mind has changed and I'm living what I was just thinking about 6 months ago. Now I'm living
100%.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that makes me excited for the future because I
Yeah.
know I can always grow. I can always evolve. I can always change.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even though I love what I'm doing now, I
Mhm.
couldn't think of anything better, but I know there's something even better.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Where'd you get
So-
that mentality of, giving back to the world? Because you mentioned like being the passion of auctioneer, and where
Yeah.
you're doing it selflessly, not selfishly, where you're
Right.
giving to.
I
Where's
mean-
that come from for you?
I just think it's my spirit. Like I've
Mm.
always, even when I modeled, acted, whatever I did, I always had a like giving back to the community, whether it was my church or just my friends
Yeah.
or whatever.
Mhm.
And I just thought about what would fulfill me. Like I had a like come to Jesus moment with myself, and I'm like, what would fulfill me in a job? Like I can't just do something that, I can't go to a desk every day. Some
Mhm.
people can do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I need to I need like a two-way process with the world. And so I just knew that I had to have something where I was being filled and I was giving it back out.
Mm. Is there a specific catalyst, like a moment in life at a certain age that happened that sort of clicked that into that direction that you can think of?
I mean, I don't know. I just
No?
feel like, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I don't have a specific
think-
moment. I feel
can't-
like that's always been
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Like that's when, like if I think about when I feel most rewarded, it's when I'm giving back.
Sure.
Mm.
So I wanted a job or a position in life where that was my career.
Yeah.
Somehow to make money at giving back.
Right.
Mhm.
And that's what I do.
Yeah.
So
Were your parents like that?
my dad is, and I didn't never put two or two together, but
Okay.
when my dad passed, I started thinking about everything that he does. And,
Mhm.
he's a hugely successful businessman with American Airlines, but
Nice.
his role was to go to charity events and
Okay.
Okay.
he was the guy at the Grammys that's sponsored by American Airlines.
Okay.
And, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I would go to all these events with him
Mm-hmm.
and see this as a kid growing up. But I was just like, oh, we're going to the Grammys. Like
Yeah.
I didn't think about
Mm-hmm.
what he was doing. And
Sure.
he had nonprofits and he was huge in African American history, culture, and teaching kids not
Mhm.
to join gangs or not to do stuff, but that you can be a businessman or
Yeah.
you can be a
Mhm.
businesswoman.
Yeah.
And so when he passed, I was able to look back and see, oh my
Connect
gosh,
the
I'm
dots.
Mhm.
I'm my dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've
So-
grown up in giving.
Yeah.
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 Didn't even really realize it.
Didn't realize it at all.
Mhm.
So
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It's wild
Yeah.
how exposure, creates your reality too.
Right,
Because
yeah.
being in those situations that an individual might look at, like, we're at the Grammys and just
Yeah.
totally lose their stuff, and you're just like, oh, this is just a normal day in
Right,
life.
yeah.
I'm just here with dad.
I know, right?
That's
and
such
I
a-
think that again has prepared me for where I am now. Because
Yeah.
it's like, oh well, this person's here, that person. They're just.
Yeah. You don't
It's
get
not. I'm
starstruck.
not freaking out over it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it was Justin Timberlake, I might freak out. but- Everybody has their one, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest thing that you've learned being a mother for
Oh my
women?
gosh, 4 women,
Yeah,
right? Not even
4 women.
Man,
oh,
you just skipped adolescence.
Dude, girls grow up fast.
every
right?
day is like a lesson in dying to myself. I think
Mm.
being patient with myself and not, because I would like to be emotional and crazy like
Yeah.
Mhm.
they can be, but I just
Right.
have to be like,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
I've noticed, with R2, when they go up, you got to come down.
oh yeah,
Mm.
You
Really?
can't go up
Because,
with
yeah.
them, bro.
Really?
it's
No.
it's easy to go up with them,
Yeah.
and then but who's the adult, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
you gotta
Who's teaching who?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta find your. I'm the adult. I'm okay.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That has to be a fun support system, seeing
That's fun.
because the age range that you have between them, that's cool because they're all growing up together
Yeah.
through that school system. I know just
Yeah.
having my brothers and sisters, or
Yeah.
with my sisters,
Right.
having that support system where you could have like inside jokes as you're walking past each other going to class.
Yeah.
Is a fun dynamic to have.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they get on each other's nerves and take each other's stuff.
yeah.
But it's fun. Yeah.
That's where it's at.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Because there's about 2 years between each of them.
Yeah. Every couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 2, 3, and then like 17 months between the last two, and we had 4 boys.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So there's a lot of furniture moving.
Yes.
A lot.
Right. Yeah.
But no, like I've had this discussion with a lot of parents, and having that 2 to 3 year window, like your kids will be each other eventually, if they're not right now, be each other's best friends later on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they've all got each other's backs, you know, at the end of the day, which
That's
is fun.
dope.
Yeah.
Only I can say that about my sister. you
Right,
know?
right, yeah. That's the honest truth, right?
Yeah. So
But you
true.
just said it. Yeah, that's right. I said it.
it, right? Yeah.
You can't say that.
Right. But it's fun. Like my oldest daughter's 5'11", so she
Oh, okay.
15, 5'11", towers over
Ooh.
me. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's crazy
Mm-hmm.
to see your kids surpass you in
Mhm.
height.
Do
but-
you see yourself, like a piece of yourself in each of them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part I have to die to. I'm like, that's me.
Yeah. You just have to
Yeah.
eat it.
How easy is it for you as a mom to allow your children the opportunity to fail, and by doing so learn life's lessons?
Yeah.
Because it's like so easy for Mama Bear to be like, no,
I know.
you know, let me
Yeah.
hold you tight.
Yeah.
Don't
it's
get hurt.
hard, but
Do you feel like it's important to allow it to happen?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to be like, you know, with my first 2, I was like,
Mhm.
you can't do this, you can't do that. And
Yeah.
but as you have more, then I'm just like, oh, she'll be okay. You know. But yeah, I mean, they have to be adults one day, you know,
Mhm.
and they have to be in this big bad world
Mhm.
and fend for themselves. I mean, they'll have
Yeah.
people around them, but at the end of the day, they need to know what failure is and
Yeah.
what success is too.
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
So like this morning, my 11-year-old wanted to wait until last night to do her state report.
Oh yeah, I've
And
been there.
so, yeah.
Mhm.
And so I was like, this morning she's crying and having, you know, drama.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, you chose not to do it. I've told you for the last month to do it, but
Yeah.
this is a result of your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not going to babysit you every day, every night.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what you have to do. So,
Mhm.
so that was a hard lesson.
Yeah.
She wasn't happy, but
Accountability is huge,
I
man.
know.
Self accountability.
but I'm not,
Is huge.
I mean, if
Yeah.
I do it for her,
right, she
that's
doesn't-
not going to teach her anything.
Right.
Yeah. They have to
So-
fail forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going through your path, have you done all your work like through self-discovery, or have you had mentors along the way to help you?
Well, Leticia was my first
Yeah.
probably mentor, but I think mostly self-discovery.
Really?
Yeah. Like I've always, throughout my life, I've always had an inner voice that I've listened to and a strong spirit.
Mhm.
And then whenever I'm at like my toughest moment, it's just like I go there, and then different things look like books or
Yeah.
Dr. Joe Dispenza. Did I tell you about him?
Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, he's good.
Do you know him?
Yeah, I know him.
Oh my
Very
gosh.
good.
So, I mean, just silly things like on Instagram, a friend of mine posted his quote. So,
Mhm.
and I respect her. So I would look, because I was so sad, I would look at who had light in their eyes, who
Mhm.
was like full of spirit, who was
Yeah.
full of life. And she was one of those people. And she posted a quote, and it was by him.
Yeah.
So then I looked up his book, and his book was on change your mindset.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it was like, that was the beginning of
Mhm.
me changing my mindset. And then Tom Bilyeu,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
watching all his stuff. Then I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with him. And then I'm, you know, Oprah, of course, always inspires me.
Mhm,
So then
yeah.
I watch all her stuff. And it was
Mhm.
just like, you know, just to empower myself and
Yeah.
and strengthen myself. And then I can get out of my funk.
Yeah, get on
Yeah.
your own way. And that's
Yeah.
that's the best thing is having, so to speak, if you can't afford or find a
Right.
in-person mentors, the virtual mentorship is huge.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Be an avid learner on YouTube,
Yeah.
like consuming people's content, good
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
And it was
And-
almost like knowledge, like the more you can read or just having that love for knowledge and,
Yeah.
and wanting to grow,
Absolutely.
I think is where it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love TED Talks, man.
Yeah.
I listen to a bunch of TED Talks.
You know, for what you're talking about, that was kind of my start in virtual mentorship.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I got turned on to TED Talks, and like
Yeah.
that shit's just fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, some of the stuff that people talk about.
Right.
And, you know, especially in the mindset, life philosophy space.
Right.
You know, you realize how much isn't left up to chance and circumstance and is left up to choice.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Conscious decisions.
Yeah. It's like
you know.
life works for you. Not,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? You can make it what you want, which nobody
Yeah.
teaches you that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
going through this, I'm like, how come nobody tells you this
Yeah.
in like
Right.
kindergarten?
Mhm.
You just are like bound by all these set
Yeah.
rules and what you have to do, and you really don't.
Yeah, and
you
that's
know?
what I respect. You said like listening to your voice of when you
Yeah.
hear it. Like I found that to be like my hardest thing is like I have an innate sense of like what I want to do.
Yeah.
For a long time when I was like younger.
Yeah.
Now I listen to it, but
Yeah.
when I was younger, I was like, "This is what I want to do," but then logic would kick in.
Logic, yeah.
Why I shouldn't do this because there's no money in this area,
Right.
and all these
Yeah.
limiting beliefs, so to
Right.
speak.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But listening to your voice and like that's your guiding light,
Yeah,
so to
it
speak.
is.
And because like you mentioned, you're gonna attract things to come to your path.
Right.
But if we're sitting there like holding on things with like a new script, like
Mhm.
exactly trying to figure out exactly how to do it,
Right.
instead of just letting it come to us,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, that's where all the hurdles
Yeah.
begin. So I found
Right.
that, man, I've had to stumble a lot doing that. So
Yeah.
that hit, man, because
Yeah.
like I think women are better at understanding, you know, that softer side and like listening to themselves and embracing emotion.
Right.
And we've talked about that a lot on the
Mhm.
past few podcasts. It's
Masculine,
like
feminine.
masculine,
Yeah.
feminine
Mhm.
energy. It's like I haven't embraced emotions. It's like, okay, whatever,
Yeah.
cast it aside, like
Right.
Yeah.
strap it up and let's go play ball or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
finding out, listening to that, the more
Yeah.
feminine side of ourselves it's not a weakness. It's
No,
it's
not at all.
empowering.
Yeah. And just quieting your mind and,
Mhm.
and being able to acknowledge it and
Yeah.
go with it.
Yeah, sitting
So-
in that room by yourself and just
Yeah.
acknowledging like what do you actually want out of life,
Right.
Yeah.
and visualizing that process is
Right.
that's
Yeah.
a tough feat. You
yeah.
know.
Were you
Yeah.
able to create a label for that thing via your yoga training? Or
Mm.
did you already know that it was real?
I mean, I haven't labeled it.
Mm-hmm.
I've always believed in God, and I've always
Mhm.
believed that there's more to just me and more
Yeah.
to the world. So
Sure.
I think that guided me my whole life. I think
Mhm.
with yoga, it took me out of like the legalistic Bible part of it,
Sure.
where it's more universal. Like
Mhm.
it's everywhere. It's
Yep.
you know, it doesn't have to just. I don't have to read this to feel the presence of God.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that helped me in just being more open and
Sure.
feeling aligned
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
with the universe and,
Mhm.
and just trusting. I mean, it's all about trusting. You can either choose fear or you can
Mhm.
choose love. So I
Mhm.
just make it my goal to never choose fear and always choose love.
Mm.
So
I like that. How would you describe your vision for your business and your life at this point? Or did
I don't know if I have a vision besides just keep going higher and higher. You know,
Right.
I don't ever want to be complacent or content.
right.
I love where I'm at and I could easily stay here,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm excited for what the next chapter is. Even though this
Mm.
chapter just started,
Yeah.
you know, I'm happy. I want to be here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is amazing, then how amazing is the next chapter going to be?
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Right. Just seeing if it's the correct vehicle for you at this
Yeah.
point. Right now it's working and it's
Right,
being
yeah.
flexible.
And I love it. And I want to learn everything that I'm doing now and be the best and do it in excellence
Mm-hmm.
and mentor other women and
Mhm.
even show my girls like what it takes to be a strong woman and not be afraid.
Yeah.
But I'm still excited for the future.
Yeah.
You know, not that I even know what that's going to look like,
Mhm.
but
Speaking
Yeah.
of your girls, do you ever feel like there's lessons that you want to teach them, but you're too close for them to get the lesson from you?
well, I feel, cause I was a stay-at-home mom besides,
Okay.
you know, modeling, acting. I
Mhm.
mean, I was still basically at home.
Okay.
So this was a lesson to them in, you know, mommy getting her groove back, and
Oh, yeah.
which was hard. Like
Yeah.
they were like, "What do you mean you're going out of town? What do you mean you're doing?" You
Mhm.
know. So,
yeah.
but now a few years later, they're proud of me. Like they're like,
Mm.
"Oh my gosh, my mom's
Yeah.
doing this. My mom's
Sure.
doing that." You know. I mean, of course they want me at their beck and call,
Right.
Mm.
but now they're like, "That's my mom." You know. So
Yeah.
So was
That's
a cool
dope.
lesson that I
Sure.
didn't have to beat him over the head and say,
Right.
you know, you need to learn this. It just
Sure.
kind of evolved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You know, that temporary adversity, if you will,
Yeah.
and then getting on the other side of it to see
right.
what it was all for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with if you know something in your core is the right thing, then
Yeah.
then you can see the hope on the other side
Right.
I
and
love
press
that.
through.
Yeah, I love that.
So, thanks.
I mean, that's a lot of what is represented on this podcast.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Once we discovered that, you know, this conversation was going to be the foundation of our message, you know, like everything else just came super easy.
Right.
You know, it's like when we meet people such as yourself, it's like, oh, they speak on our frequency.
Right,
They,
exactly.
They think
Yeah.
on our wavelength.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got something worth sharing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're just really proud of that we've created a platform for
Right.
folks like you to come on and
No, it's awesome.
and share that light with the universe.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, I can't tell you how many people like week after week are like, "Oh, I made this decision because of so and so on your
Right.
show.
Oh, that's so
Subyn
good.
said this." And,
I can't wait for
you know,
that.
you know,
It's
Yeah.
gonna happen. Yeah.
yeah,
That'll be cool.
and it's super cool and you know, unintended.
Yeah.
You know, so much of this is like, you know, we're the only ones having this conversation.
Right.
You know, there's got to be more people having this
Exactly.
conversation.
Yeah.
You know,
And
start a
thank
podcast.
God, because if I didn't have the virtual coaching or whatever, then I wouldn't have any of that.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have YouTube or if I didn't have, you know, I couldn't just say motivational speeches and
Yeah.
and find Oprah or Jim Carrey or Les Brown, you know, all those people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. You created your reality essentially. And that's
I
the-
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, have you read The Alchemist, the book?
Yes, I read that
Okay,
too.
yeah.
I was like, I read every book for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read The
Nice.
Alchemist, all Joe Dispenza's books.
Yeah.
The Four Agreements.
That's somebody just told me about that
I think
today.
I told.
No, they're giving it to me.
Oh, really?
Brad Perry. Do you know
Okay.
him?
Mm-mm.
You should have him on here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's two people. She's giving us
Yes,
two
I
references.
know.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. keep them coming.
The
Yeah.
giving. The
The
giving nature.
That's
Yes,
right,
I
that's
know.
right.
I'll have a list for you.
Subyn the Giver.
Yes.
That's probably what I'll call the episode.
That works good. That's perfect.
Where can everybody go and support everything that you got going on?
So I have my website, subyn.com, SUBYN.com.
I'm a fan of Wise.
Yes.
Yes.
And then Instagram, just Subyn, SUBYN.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess some people use Facebook, but for my older friends,
Yeah.
Facebook. No. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I will get you a copy of the book.
Yes. And
Yeah.
autographed
Of course.
to Subyn the Giver.
Subyn the Giver. I'll make sure you get a copy of Inner Circle as soon as it gets out. Really appreciate you being on the show
Yeah,
today.
Thank you for having me.
You crushed
for being
it.
here.
It's your first
thanks.
podcast experience?
My first one.
Really?
Did I do a good job?
Oh, you did awesome. More to come for you. Shoot.
Yay.
Oh,
Tom
yeah.
Bailey, here I come.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, guaranteed.
There it is.
Yeah.
Impact theory.
Yeah,
Here we
heck
go.
yeah.
Impact theory, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's in my vision, in my head. One day.
You'll do it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You'll absolutely
no doubt.
do it.
No doubt.
Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bunch of them.
Put it
on
out
my
there in the
list.
universe.
Yeah.
Oh, it's out
let
there.
Let everybody know.
It's there.
Yeah.
No, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. We know you got lots of places to be and a lot of people that want your company. So really appreciate you taking time on the couch with us today.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah,
It was fun.
absolutely. For
Thank
sure.
you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Until next time, guys, feed me, fuel me.